girls, ghouls, and squirrels. Chris Craig here. Just going to show you how to make some beer with the homebrew Mr. Beer kit. I'm actually a mead maker, so this is my first time making beer, but it'll be a journey we both can go on together. First thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into some of the utensils and like what came with the kit and how to get started. So we'll jump right over to that. Alright, so what we've got here is we've got our metal spoon, our whisk, our pot, our sanitizing fluid, or powder, a plate to put all of our clean utensils are, the actual keg, and then we've got the Grand Bohemian Czech Pilsner malt, which is supposed to be in this kit. Was supposed to be American lager, and I think that's why this kit was so cheap. I actually got it for 15 bucks at our local outlet store. So we will be jumping right into that. We're going to show you how to put all of this into one thing, into that keg, to make beer in 2 weeks. So our first step here is going to be taking our can of malt, getting this lid off, setting it aside, taking your yeast packet and putting it in that lid. And then we've got our malt here, which is what the yeast feeds on to actually make the fermentation process that makes the alcohol. So we're going to take this and we're going to actually put it into a bowl of hot water so that the ingredients inside this can, which are very thick and sticky and like don't move very well, kind of like honey, when they're cold, will be able to warm up and be easy to take out when we put it into the pan. So our next step, while that heats up in that bowl of water, is we're going to sanitize our keg and our utensils. And we're going to do that with this no-rinse sanitizer that the kit provided. I've already put the water that's required in here to sanitize it, but let's just jump right in and do that. So we're only going to add half the pack of sanitizer. Then we're going to take our metal spoon and make sure it gets stirred up really good. Because we don't want any wild yeasts or any kind of bacterial strains that will actually harm the beer or the yeast. And then we're just going to leave our utensils in here to soak for a little bit while we get our must ready in this pan. So our next step is going to be, we're going to boil 4 cups of water to add our malt extract to make our must. Put that on high and get that going. Now while that's going, we're going to go back to our utensils, pour out the sanitizer, and sanitize a plate to set all our utensils on. Next step is going to be to take all of our sanitized utensils and put them over here. And yeah, I didn't state before that you also wash your hands, which I did before this process. And we also have our can opener. I forgot to say in the last step as well. And so all of those are on a sanitized plate that I pre-sanitized. Now I'm going to dump all of this out. Or I'm going to shake it, then dump it out. Thank you, babe. You're the best fiance ever. Shake that drink. I'll pour a little bit through the spigot itself that's off the bottom here. And this is for when you're bottling. You can actually put it into the bottles. That's pretty nice. But bear in mind, I have actual big boy brewing stuff, so this is kind of very new to brewing. This, how you're doing it with the already pre-made malt and extract and everything. And since I'm not an expert on beer, it's a lot easier for me to get into it and get excited about it. But with mead, it's super simple. You just do the hot water, the honey, put it in your carboy with your airlock and everything. This is very simplistic, so on we go. now that we've got a rolling boil, I'm going to take this off and bring it to the other counter, and then we're going to mix in our malt extract. So now we've got our hot water. I've moved it over here off the actual burner because you don't want to put it in while it's on the burner. It'll actually burn the extract. So I'm going to take my can out. I'm going to dump this water. We're done with that bowl. And now from the bottom of the can, we're going to take our can opener, open it up. I don't want to waste any of this because the more you can get in, the better it will be. The more alcohol will be converted by the yeast and the sugar. Alright. Then we're going to take this and we're going to stir it as we put it in. It's okay if it gets onto the whisk as you do it. That is completely fine. Just make sure that this is mixed into the water very well. So now we're going to fill our keg up to the one line, which is right here, with cold water before we pour our wort, not our must. I'm sorry, I'm not used to the beer terminology stuff going on. But we're going to do that with really cold water, and luckily from our sink we have very cold water. Our next step is going to be putting the wort into the container, or into our keg, with that cold water that we've already put in there. And hopefully not killing myself in the process. So our next step is just going to be to top it off and get it up to this 2 mark here, which is for 2 gallons. This makes 2 gallons of beer. So I'm going to use some more cool water out of my sink. Some people really like to use like filtered bottled water and such. And I would, and most of the time I'm just poor, so this is how I do it. And we don't have a lot of like chlorine in this. We're not in a big city. Alright, and now that we're at the 2 mark, now that we've got our mixture all up inside the keg, we're going to mix it up really good. We want to get all of the wort mixed in. Pretty sure it's a must at that point, but heck, beer is new to me, so you just really want to make sure you get that in there. And this next step is weird to me because normally I pitch my yeast, but the ingredients and the steps in this call to just pour the yeast packet in across the top, which is odd in my knowledge of making mead, which is different, so. Got our little tiny packet of Brewers Mr. Beer 16816, 5 grams of brewer's yeast. Alright, and then we just screw on our cap. And this cap actually does have a ventilation system inside of it, which I was like, how is this thing not going to just explode on me? But there we go. And now you're going to want to put this somewhere in a 67, in between 67 and 70 degrees away for 2 weeks, and then test it and see if it's become beer. So I will get back to you here in 2 weeks after that's had time to ferment. And thank you so much for joining us.